المصطفى رسول إمام بنور الصفا.
Urban Women, it is. I'm your host, Razia Rangwage, and I'm joined in the studio by somebody who is actually no stranger to Radio Ansaar. We're not just talking about now or current times or the Sunday lounge per se, but we're talking about way back then, and we want to know all about her journey, and she's on our spotlight today. Join us on Facebook. Yes, we are live on Facebook and on YouTube as well. And we have Sister Salma Kazi Wahab in the studio with us, joining us on our spotlight for today. Assalamu alaikum, Salma. Welcome to Urban Women.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you for putting me in the spotlight.
Only a pleasure. You know, the honor is actually ours. Alhamdulillah, such a history. And celebrating 12 years, Alhamdulillah, Radio Ansaar has really achieved amazing years. And you are here to share with us part of that history. You have been here along the way. And so talk to us. I mean, you were even sharing some interesting facts about the lady on the technical side that just wants to be... Yeah.
But yeah, alhamdulillah, it's such a privilege to be able to be here at least now, because I was MIA for 10 years for a while.
Yep.
But I felt like I never left when I rejoined now. It's been a year since I've come back. Alhamdulillah, may Allah keep it that way. But yes, to commemorate 12 years of full-time radio. Many people know Al Ansaar came on only on a seasonal basis during Ramadan. They would wait. And that was probably the hardest, but the best, but the hardest. There was a lot of mixed emotions with that, because when we knew that time and we got told the date that radio was going on, and the messages would go around, this is the date, this is when we're going on, prepare yourselves, would you be available? Everyone got sent around these messages, and then you had to psych yourself up now. And for many of us that were still students at the time, we were teenagers, 17, 18 to be really honest. We were young.
Let's do the calculations.
People will start figuring out. But it's fairly obvious. We were young. We were straight out of school. I was still in varsity, and I would go to lectures, or my grandfather at that time would drop me off at Al Ansaar in the morning by 9ish, and we would start preparation. So it would be anything from working on the programming schedule to I would start downloading nasheeds immediately from then. My task was setting the nasheed playlists every broadcast.
No wonder you're a natural Sunday lounge, right?
I loved my nasheeds. I always loved it. And then Riyaz Jamal always would the emails would start coming in from him. Salma, here's a new speaker. Here's this speaker. Here's this. And we would try to make the every broadcast the best possible, because we only had that 30 days.
Correct.
So you had to condense everything, almost like a concentrated version. Like now everything is spread out, but now you've just got 30 days, make it last, make it happen, make the most of it. So from the content, the azans, the types of azans, as many surahs as possible, different reciters, and everybody brought their A game, because now you wanted to maximize on that time. The kiddie shows had callers calling in from the beginning to the end.
I remember that.
Because people waited. People waited for that time, and the Halim announcements. And my father still asks me to this day, where's the Halim being distributed? Because that was my job. We used to go on in between every program. Like how SABC used to have back in the day, those announcers that used to come on at the end of every show.
Correct.
Now Al Ansaar used to have that. At the end of every show, we would come in, now a little excited to talk on the mic now, and we'd come in and say, coming up next is Cooking with Asha Maraj. And later on is this speaker, or a live broadcast from here. Shukran, assalamu alaikum. Oh, it made our day just to say those few words.
I'm sure.
But it was fun.
Alhamdulillah.
It was really fun.
And of course, I do remember back in the days growing up, younger, school days, and then, Ramadan is coming, and it kept us all alive, and we waited for that time. And then, okay, Eid, bittersweet. And then very excited to know that Radio Al Ansaar obviously is now a permanent radio station. So that's great. Tell us a little bit about your journey as well, being in media. If you took a gap, what did that mean to you? We're also in Women's Month. Tell us what that means to you as well.
I think it's what's important in that aspect, and I thought about it on my way here as well. How would I connect the two, Women's Month and my journey? And then I realized, Salma, you joined when you were a teenager. You were not married. I was gypsy girl with my big nose ring and my style of dressing.
Do you have any pictures?
Nichelle found some pictures of me back in the day. I don't even know if Tobeka would remember, but we had like very radical way of dressing. It was...
Wait, pause there. Tell our listeners, Tobeka, how was she back in the days?
Tobeka, yeah. You must know when we joined at that time, again, it was part-time. So we would come on and we were fresh. There was Sakina, there were so many of us, and we were very excited. Sabira, Sheikh Isup, and a lot of us that were very keen and enthusiastic and ready. And Tobeka came on. We used to have a lot of students at that time.
Right.
DUT students filling in the hallways. We had a whole newsroom, about 7-8 of them sitting there all the time, researching news and coming on. Many of them were training. They didn't know. They weren't professional newsreaders.
Right.
And we sometimes used to have to sit with them, coach them, what they have to do. We'll help each other. Tobeka joined at that time as well. And now today, she could run this whole studio herself if she wanted to.
Absolutely.
But she did technical. She was the studio receptionist at that time, taking our calls, screening our calls. And she would do production for the shows as well, the presenters that would come on. And I did mention to you off air as well, I dug through the archives a little bit just to refresh my memory. And I remember introducing her and said, this is Tobeka and this is what she's doing. She's like this, she's like that. It's amazing. We had a lot of that we used to boost each other up a lot that time. We really used to.
Such a great spirit.
And when we went full time and the news was broken to us privately first, was told, this is what's happening. We've got the full-time license. The doors got closed, and I tell you, tears and everything. But what that meant, and again, connecting it to Women's Month now, is it now meant we weren't just part-time anymore. We now faced a conundrum. We now were, whether or not we could take it on full-time. And again, we're young, we're free. The unmarried ones jumped with joy because that meant full-time jobs. So just like that, many of us got employed, alhamdulillah, as full-time employees. For some of us, it was programming, and I got involved more extensively with programming then. I then got the afternoon drive show, the S Factor, and things just evolved from there. And then I got married. So then things changed again. So my role with Radio Al Ansar had to evolve. I couldn't now do a 4 to 6 show because I wanted to be home when my husband gets home. So I then switched to the daytime, which is now Urban Woman.
Look at that. So Salma,
it's come a long way.
It has indeed. So alhamdulillah, you have created this slot 10 to 12. You pitched it, you put it forward and said, why not make it for
a show for women?
Women. And we absolutely love it. I think that was a brilliant idea.
We had a mixed bag of shows at the time, which are still existing. Shagufta is still around. Aisha Jamal is still around. We had Asha Miraj at that time as well. Amina Jamal at that time also. And we had ulama between 10 and 11. Maulana A.R. Khan, Marhoom, so many others, Sheikh Fahim, and all that were part of that 10 to 11 slot. Hafiz Habib, Sufi from Alpine Road, quite a few of them filled that morning time slot. But when I requested or made that request, look, I'm married, and they kind of all understood what I was meaning.
Indeed.
And they said, okay, we like this idea. Farad Patel was around at that time, the station manager. This is after Riyaz Jamal. And then we made this change. It was called Anwar al-Haya at that time. And I lasted for a little while, but then I got a bit excited with married life, and I was like, okay, let me focus on other things. But what people don't realize is I was also pursuing an honors in psychology. And I also handled PR and marketing for small businesses. So I decided to take a step back. I was in my early 20s and I felt, okay, maybe one day I'll come back. But to Al Ansar, it was like a farewell. I was dying or something. People made these long voice notes. The Tobeka will know they did this farewell. They had a farewell lunch, and they sent messages and farewell messages online on the shows, almost like I would never come back again. And now Nishal played it for me and he says, listen to this. I started crying listening to it because Auntie Asia says in the voice note, I was hoping one day to see your children running around the studios at Al Ansar. But today I can say my kids do run around the studios.
Absolutely. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Absolutely wonderful journey, Salma. And yes, you're back. And it's interesting how we end up being where we're meant to be. Like, little did I ever think. Full circle. Absolutely. I think I'd be sitting here as well. Like, really, I was told, no, I don't want to take no for an answer. You have to be the Urban Woman presenter. And it's so nice to know who actually created this time slot for women, and to be connecting with you and chatting with you about
You know why that it's so beautiful? Because that's what I think makes Al Ansar is the listeners.
Correct.
And we have such an amazing group of women, not even a group of women, that's the wrong word to use, but we have women, female listeners who are immensely loyal to the station, who will keep that radio station on all day.
Yes.
And I know women like that. And
Absolutely.
I've met women at so many functions who it's the first thing they switch on in the morning.
Yeah.
And as I'm old school like that, I want to hear my radio during Ramadan in the car. As much as we love our nasheeds and everything, it's that connection you build with the person.
Learning. That's true.
It's amazing. And I think this time slot is when the husbands are now gone to work. The women are at home. Many women are cooking. Many women, yes, are elderly. And as much as people say, no, you have to move with the times and appeal to Gen Z and appeal to the modern generations, and we have to get the youth listening. But what about the thousands of women that are sitting there glued to the radio every day, that are listening to your sunnah tips and your advice and your nasiha, and they're appreciating that, and that's what you want at the end of the day, to build that.
But you know what? The feedback, alhamdulillah, when I do go for events or I speak anywhere or I'm out about, it's that it's not just limited to those ladies only. No. It's amazing at how people tell me I sit at work with my earphones and I listen. And then there was a psychologist that came to me and she says, I love your show. What I do is I schedule my meetings in between
so she gets to listen.
That I don't miss out. Yes. And somebody even asked if we could, because he and his wife, they're probably listening now. They said that sometimes they get shouting from their customers because they get so clued up that they're not serving their customers. So they want it full time on Facebook. I said, you'll get bored full time on Facebook. But alhamdulillah, that's just the thing, is that Radio Al-Ansar has really grown, and I think it's reaching people. It's not just women. There's so many men that even listen.
True.
And some of the ladies will come to me at my practice and I'll also be like, okay, how? My husband listens, but it's this ripple effect, the goodness that you can give off. And that's the niyyah and intention, inshallah. Allah Azza wa Jalla accept.
I mean, and that's why it's also so important, again, with Women's Month, why it ties in, and with the evolution of something like Radio Al-Ansar in particular, because when you started, you're a teenager, you have to consider now your private life as well as radio. Correct. It is a community radio station. Correct. But then to also be an ambassador for women in Islam, to realize the role that you now have, and now also I had disappeared, like I mentioned, for that 10 years, and I was pursuing other things. Then I had another child and COVID happened. Lots of things happened because I did try to come back in 2019. I was back for, I think, about a month. But what is not meant for you at that time will not work. It was not meant for me at that time. And I always think, wow, I tried to come back, and then I realized, hang on, I was meant to have my boy. I was meant to go for Umrah.
Everything in its time.
COVID happened that March. After we returned from Umrah, the lockdown started. And life just turned full circles like that. And now that my kids are much older, and now when I made the intention to rejoin, it somehow just feels right. And now, alhamdulillah, everybody, we have a good relationship. It's all new people. Indeed. So it was like me starting all over again, getting to know new staff, new team. But it's been incredible. And I really think it's something that women need to believe in Allah's plan at the end of the day, that when you have your eyes set on something, and I read this meme or somebody had it on their status recently, it's to all the moms chasing their dreams while chasing their babies.
Nice one.
So sometimes you get so caught up and think you're missing out.
Correct.
Or you're not getting to do what you would like to be doing. But meanwhile, you don't know what's waiting around the corner. You don't know that you'll get the opportunity to do something again, or you'll get that opportunity to be where you want to be again.
Absolutely. And what we say is that something is being prepared that you don't know. So Allah Azza wa Jalla puts that halt. And yes, you don't understand, and that sense of disappointment can come in. But then later on, you're like, there was like kind of like a renovation happening, and now it's ready, and I can just go in and enjoy. But it's so beautiful when you can actually sit back and realize the plan of Allah Azza wa Jalla, put the pieces of the puzzle together. And as you said, while we may have aspirations, we are first a Muslimah. Like as the various roles you said, look, you took your role as a wife very seriously. And I think this is something very important that us Muslims should not lose sight of. The husband, the status of a husband is so important. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, if there's anybody that I would, that you could bow down to, I would say it's your husband. So alhamdulillah, I think you've got your priorities right.
If I had to say that now in 2024, that no, I have to change my show time because I need to be home when my husband comes back from work, people would almost look at me almost like, huh? Why? Because I feel almost like that mindset is shifting. But I couldn't fathom being a newlywed and being at work for my first year of marriage. You know what I mean? I found that a bit unsettling for me. So that was the first thing before I got married, was approached Auntie Asiya and say, can you please change my time slot, because I would prefer being at home. But it again worked out. Du'as of the late station managers, Marhum Riyaz Jamal was, and I always remember this, and he teased me when he started getting really ill. I just make dua, Salma, I could see who your husband will be, that you must marry somebody from Overport. And he closed his eyes, he put his hand up, he must be from Overport, and he must keep you close to the radio station as possible. If I tell you, Razia, I ended up marrying somebody from Overport and I ended up living on Sheringham Road. You can see my flat straight from the window behind Ansaar building. I could walk to work. And I always said that was his du'as.
Indeed, the angel said, Ameen.
On the doorstep of Ansaar.
How beautiful indeed. It's time for a break, but here's some messages coming through. Sister Aisha Vai says, wonderful to hear Salma Kazi as a guest on your show. Salma is a veteran presenter from back in the day, always a professional from her young days.
Amen.
Salma was the face of Al-Ansar. My late mom and I always enjoyed her shows. Thank you, Salma, for your unwavering commitment to Radio Al-Ansar in particular. Alhamdulillah. And there's another one. I'm from Indonesia. Oh, Assalamu alaikum. Permission to listen to the host. Permission granted.
I thought you were going to say it in an Indonesian accent.
Indonesia. Okay. Permission granted. Okay. Anyways, Sister Wahida says, Salams, how are you? I'm one of those whose radio is on 24/7 every day in the car too. Salma, I've listened to you.
Oh, man.
From when you started.
Wow.
She was a clinky back in the day. And now look, she's a mom of two, all grown up, mashallah. Assalamu alaikum, lovely show. I have Al-Ansar on in my car, permanently locked, no changing, even at home. Alhamdulillah. Love Al-Ansar, so informative, so entertaining, so proud of you all. Sister Zaida Ismail, keep up the good work. Jazakallah khair for that. Do appreciate that. Assalamu alaikum, my beautiful ladies. Which Salma had time with children line the afternoon? I don't understand.
I think she's referring to the social network shows, I'm assuming, when I was doing it for that little while.
Right.
And I did it for that 2 weeks when Zahira's away. And I said, I wouldn't do that again if you asked me to, because it was hectic. You know, the kids come home from school and they're hungry and they're tired. And for that 2 weeks, my children, mashallah, they made so much of sabr and they came through every day. Tobeka had to babysit for that 2 hours with all the toys, all the snacks, toilet breaks. It was crazy. And I was very excited when Zahir came back to say, right, the show is yours.
Look, 2 hours is big. I do Monday to Thursday.
In mum time, that is long.
It is, absolutely. Salam's phenomenal woman. I listen to you all 24/7. Keep going. Al-Ansar, the heartbeat of the Ummah.
I like how you say it the way they must be saying it.
With that energy, right? After
keep going.
Okay, Salma, I'll say keep going. Salma, it's been wonderful having you on.
Imagine if we had Facebook Live back in the day. Wow. That would have been funny. Our studio was never like this. We had three or four different types of desks back in the day. Initially, it started with the school desks and the mic just on the table. Then it shifted to a round, it was a trestle table sort of thing, a straight one at one point, and the presenter sat around it. Right. Then we had a round table with the same carpet that was on the floor was put on top of the table as well to prevent sound and noise.
Yes, absolutely.
And the mics would come out of the table sometimes, all swinging around the studio.
Interesting.
And then we had one that was like a crescent. So the table used to go around us. Like that was also interesting. So we had like evolution of tables.
See how fancy they are right now.
And look at it now. It's fantastic.
And we can see the pictures out there.
Yeah.
How things have been, how it was. Some of the presenters were very young then.
Yes,
and you think,
Mohammed Variawa and all of them. Yeah. They've really.
Think, wow. But anyway, we'll just go into a state of denial that we'll always remain 16. We'll just pause there.
We'll just say, Al-Ansar is forever 16.
Absolutely.
It'll forever have that feeling of nostalgia when you walk into, you listen to Al-Ansar, we can go into 2035, but Al-Ansar will have that same connection that it had back in 1994, 1996. And that's because that intention is always there to enrich and to unite the community. That purpose is there. It'll always be there.
Thank you so much, Salma. It was such a wonderful pleasure having you on today.
So fun.
Connecting with you. Fun as always. Yes. And we look forward to having you again on Urban Woman, inshallah. But do have yourself a lovely day. We've got some ad breaks to play before I wrap up. Until then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Urban Woman, sponsored by Vada Gold Gem Jewelers, where